Welcome to Art Lounge Alley, everyone. This is Figure Drawing Part 40. I will jump into it in just a few minutes. I also wanted to, before I do, go over the Patreon page for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time to the Art Lounge Alley. And here it is. So this is the Art Lounge Alley Patreon page. And there are 6 tiers altogether. There's several that I think are going to be really interesting in the near future. So I'm going to just go over them real quick, one by one. We've got tier 1, which is the official patron tier. So for $2 per month, pretty affordable. It's not too expensive. Way to support the stream, have it keep going. You are getting access to the Discord server, which pretty much brings everybody from all the social media platforms that I post to regularly, and all the tiers to come together to this one channel and interact with each other, have a community, some place that you guys can tune in every day at all hours, really, to interact with one another, get to know one another, share ideas, thoughts, expression, your work, whatever it is. It's a place to create an artistic community. And you will also have your patron name listed in the credits as a thank you. I'm going to start doing credits at the end of the stream once you guys are going to start pledging to these tiers, and your name is going to be listed there. Then we got tier 2, all access patrons. Now this is where you guys get access to all of my work. You get early access to finished pages and exclusive content. So things that I'm not going to be posting to other social media platforms, it's only going to be for patrons. You guys are going to have access to that. You're going to have work in progress, behind scenes in the future, and all the previous tier benefits. And that's for $5 per month. Now we got the next tier, and this is where it gets interesting. This is where you guys can get involved with the Art Lounge Alley. It is the critique submissions tier. So if you're an illustrator, you're looking to get some pointers, you're looking to get some fresh perspective on something that you're working on. Maybe you're kind of wrestling with some anatomy, maybe you're wrestling with some perspective, and you just need an idea of where to go with your work. This tier is great for that. So for $15 per month, you can make it a one-time submission and then cancel before the next month is coming up. Or you can have it reoccurring, and whenever you're finished with what you're working on, or you need some guidance, you can always send it to me on the Discord channel, and I will promote it and critique it, along with your promote your social media platform. So whatever it is that you have, whether it's Instagram, DeviantArt, Tumblr, just common social media platforms, I will post that as well when I'm critiquing your work, so more people can check out your work, more people could get to know you, and add the face to the name in a sense. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that every Friday for 2 hours. So whatever it is that I'm going to be streaming, it's going to be substituted with the critique stream, and it's going to be from 8 until 10, where I'm going to be working on your stuff, trying to make it improve it, trying to give you guys pointers, and that sort of thing. All right, next we got the Kickstarter patrons. That's $25 per month. This is an opportunity for you to get a high resolution digital painting of you done. So once you pledge to this tier, and you can do it once, you can submit a portrait of yourself, just a photo of you from the head down to your chest. And I will be doing that on Thursdays for 2 hours. So from 8 until 10, I'm going to be doing a digital high-resolution painting of you, which I'm going to send to you once it's complete, and you could do whatever it is that you like. You could make it a social media profile photo. You could send it to somebody close to you. I do encourage you guys to put on masks, makeup, glasses, expressive face expressions, hats, and accessories. I think it'll make it more fun and interesting, give you guys an opportunity to express yourselves, and make the stream more fun. Have people check out what you come up with. But it's not required. You could just send me a simple photo of you, and I will be doing a digital painting of that. And you will also get all the previous tier benefits, as well as having your name listed in the credits. Next, we got Tier 4, and this is for intermediate or advanced artists. If you guys are looking to promote your work, if you're looking to be part of an artistic community, to have more people get to know you and just share your ideas and expression, this is the perfect place for that. It's not limited to illustrators, it's open to all sorts of artists. So whether you're a comedian, dancer, musician, architect, animator, painter, poet, performance artist, filmmaker, or just an artist with interesting content that you'd like to share, it's a perfect tier for that. You'll get 5-minute airtime. I encourage you guys to, well, it's required in a way, to create a 5-minute video showing your work. And that gives you an opportunity to unravel it the way you'd like it. Time it however you like it. Talk about it the way that you like it, as long as it's within 5 minutes. And the goal is going to be to have at least maybe 3 artists to promote at the beginning of the stream. So 5 minutes is a good amount of time in order to distribute it amongst them. There are some requirements here. And it's a bit of a list here. It's some ideas, so I highly encourage you guys to read through it before you pledge to this tier. And if you have any questions, ask away. Ask in the stream or through the other social media platforms that I've listed on the Twitch channel. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you got. You could also check out the video that I posted when I posted the Patreon page launch. It's in the Twitch channel in the video collections folder. In the highlights, you will find Patreon page launch and schedule change. And over there, I go into detail about every single tier so you guys can get a better idea there as well. All right, and then the next one I got tier 5 private tutoring, and that's limited to 15 people. I am going to be sending you, once you guys pledge this and you send me work that you are working on, and this is open to everybody. Unlike the previous tier, this is open to all sorts of skill levels. So if you're a beginner, if you never drew before, you're interested in learning, or you're developing your skills, all the way up to advanced, you guys have an opportunity to get a 30-minute personalized video from me to you every week. So 1 video per week, 4 videos per month of me helping you and giving you some pointers, giving you step-by-step instructions and demonstrations, showing you where you could improve, and you'll also get a PSD file for you to explore at your own pace and time. I'm going to assign you guys homework so that you could progress through the week. Challenge yourselves, pick on, get new things to work on throughout the week, so that next week I can help you guys through that as well. And you will also get a private Discord channel dedicated just for you. So it's going to be a one-on-one. Nobody's going to have access to it. Every single member who pledges to this tier is going to have one dedicated just for them. And that way you guys can leave me comments, you can leave me questions, you can leave me the progress that you have going on, and I'll write you back or talk about it in the next video that I'm going to send you. You will also get access to the general Discord server that I mentioned earlier, where pretty much everybody from all the social media and all the tiers come into that channel and get to know each other, interact with one another, that sort of thing. So 4 personalized videos per month, a PSD file, exclusive Discord channel dedicated for you, tier 5 members only Discord channel. So all of you who pledge this tier, the 15 of you, will have your own private channel where you guys can interact with one another, get to know one another, share ideas, that sort of thing. Create a community, a place for you guys to come into and see some familiar faces. Also, you get all the previous tier benefits as well, including having your name listed in the credits and access, as I mentioned, to the Discord server. So that pretty much does it, yo. I'm going to be dedicating a day. One of these days, I'm going to spend more time talking about each tier. I've been trying to be more brief about it, not to cut into the stream. And yeah, so without further ado, I'm just going to jump into today's sesh. So I'm still continuing on with filling up pages. I wanna make sure that all the pages where they're empty space are going to be covered before I move on to the next sketchbook. So for those of you just tuning in, as you could see here, pretty much throughout the entire sketchbook, all the pages are covered. Uh-oh. Is it doing that weird thing again where it's like freezing? Yeah. Hold on a second, I'll be right back. Just to make sure there. So yeah, for those of you who are just tuning in, this is just to show how pretty much the entire sketchbook is covered all around. So I made sure not to waste any of the space on there. And it was a way to exercise drawing objects next to each other. Not making something center page, and then if it doesn't work out, flip to the next page and do the same thing. It's just a way to exercise drawing objects over each other, behind each other, overlapping, that sort of thing, and just working with that space and really giving the sketchbook your all. There's some pages where I'm going to leave space because I'm going to be uploading it and making it available for you guys to use as practice. And some of these pages, actually, this is what I mentioned, I'm going to show you guys real quick. I'm not going to get into detail about it, but this video, these two pages are available on the Patreon page for you guys to practice and you understand the head as a unit of measurement in order to understand the proportions better, and just in general, a good way to practice. I like to do it daily just to refresh my mind on all of these rules that really kind of help understand the proportion and all the different body parts, the way that they relate to one another. So that is available. I'm also going to be uploading other ones. There's this page right here, giving you guys the opportunity to draw the figure in its most basic form, drawing the body using these basic shapes in order to give yourself some parameter to work within, to know how tall, how short you should be drawing within the frame or within the page that you're working on. And there's a bunch of other ones there as well that I'm going to be uploading, but just to give you guys a demonstration, use up the entire page. It's a great way to practice. It's really making sure that you take advantage of the sketchbook. Don't skip pages. You know, if you drew on one side, don't avoid the other side, unless it's thin paper, in which case I encourage you guys to get a better sketchbook that's a little bit more resilient. And that way you don't have that fear building up every time you draw. So that pretty much does it. I'm not going to go into way more detail. I do want to jump into drawing. So let's see, where do we leave off? It's right here. It's going to be a lot more of the same. And I want to encourage you guys to maintain the same process by starting out drawing lightly, not holding the pencil too close to the tip, keeping a distance from it. There's multiple benefits to it. You get to see the entire drawing as opposed to having it blocked by the tip of your fingers and your hand, really, obstructing your vision. It also allows you to keep it loose. You know, I think when you're holding it too tight and close to the tip, it kind of pushes this very rigid process of drawing, and you kind of want to avoid that. Your hand gets tired, you're drawing, it also reflects in your drawing looks stiff because you're just so focused on making sure you have control over every single line. But after you practice drawing at a distance like this, as you can see, I'm not holding it this way, it really becomes very enjoyable. You could also see that my range of motion is a lot wider. Like, I can really travel all over the page without really using the wrist or my hand much, whereas if I'm holding it towards the tip, to really get down there, I have to use my arm a lot more. I have to use my wrist a lot more. Whereas here, as you guys could see, look at how high that range is. So, multiple benefits to it. It's not just the style. You know, it's not just like, oh, do you like it that way or not? There are benefits that come with it. Multiple benefits. I think primarily for me, aside from the range of motion, it really is about making it a pleasant, sort of loose experience rather than a rigid one. And that's what I really like about that technique. So on this one, I kind of jumped into just drawing out the figure using the basic shapes. But in the next one, which is going to be in a minute, I'm going to start out by doing a gesture drawing first. Very simple, extremely simple form of giving yourself parameters to work within. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So this is pretty much done. I think you guys could see it. I'm going to just move this a little further away. I'm going to define it a little bit more so you guys can get a better view. So one of the biggest benefits of drawing the figure using these basic shapes is that you're working with something. You know, when people say, you would hear people often say, just sketch out what you're trying to draw, right? Well, in that process, when you are sketching, what do? What do you sketch, right? Do you just like squiggle lines around? And some people it works, and that's great. But I find this to be really time-saving and helpful, and it's also fun. You know, once you grasp this idea, once you understand these shapes and you're able to draw them, it becomes very enjoyable and more pliable. Like, you really could move it around more three-dimensionally all over in any direction, because you just understand that. You could see it better as an actual figure, if that makes sense. Like, it's better visualized in your mind because of this understanding. Because essentially, these are all just lines. It's not three-dimensional. You know, you're just making it out to be that way. It's this illusion that happens. But by creating this illusion using these three-dimensional shapes, it helps you, in your imagination, understand it three-dimensionally as well. So here's an example of the gesture drawing I was talking about. And this is basically just a stick figure. You know, I'm just drawing a stick figure so that I know how far, for example, like, okay, I don't want it to go way into the frame. So let me just draw out the entire figure to make sure that things fit in properly. And I'm just using simple lines to give myself those parameters. And this is a very useful tool, especially when you're doing comics, when you're drawing panels, because again, you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're drawing really fits within the frame. Once you start out, you might draw the head too big, and then when you start drawing out the rest of the body, you'll realize, oh damn, I wanted to show the feet, but they're not going to fit. Or I wanted to show, let's say, this part of the sword, but because everything else is so big, it just wouldn't make sense. It would end up looking like a butter knife if I wanted to fit it within the panel. So just sketching things out this way in its most simple form allows you to make sure that everything really does fit within a space that you want it to. And this is something that I use as a common example. This is like building a building. You know, these lines right here, imagine them as being the beams. You know, before you build the building, you want to make sure that the building is sitting properly, that when you build on top of those beams, that everything is going to be sound and it's going to be stable. So think of it, it's the same way as this. You want to make sure that everything is stable before you start laying on the bricks, before you start putting in the detail in the drawing, so that you could avoid the mistake of like, oh damn, spent all that time, I started out with a lot of detail in the face, but the rest of the body is going to be way off the page, or you know, it's going to go below the page or whatever else. So it's just a form of security, let's just say, to ensure everything is right. And it doesn't have to be, like, sometimes people get confused by that, you know, when they're first starting out to draw and they see somebody do like the stick figure or whatever, they really follow it and they try to like draw exactly as the figure is, or as the stick figure is, making sure everything is kind of like lined up or in the middle or in the center of the stick figure, but it's not necessary. It's just there to give you, like I said, just some boundaries to work within, making sure that everything is proportionate, that everything fits, that everything is in position of where you want it to be. It's not leaning too far to the left or right, that sort of thing, to avoid that happening when you really do start putting in details. So I'm not fully following it. I'm still deviating from those lines. They just reassure me that everything is going to fit the way I'd like it to. The length of the body is just right. And by drawing loosely, by drawing lightly, I give myself opportunity to correct things. For example, when I first started out, the head was a little too small. It was still there, and again, it was a placeholder in a sense, right? Like I could go back and then make it a lot bigger than it needs to be. Or smaller, whichever direction, really, depending on how the rest of the body is. So now I'm going to do the same thing, and this time I'm going to draw it even smaller. I'm going to change the angle as well. Just to demonstrate to you guys that really once you understand this, once you understand how to draw the figure using these basic shapes, that it really becomes an advantage. I made the hips a little too big because I remembered that the head is really 1.5 heads wide and 1 head high. Alright, so just going back to this is the benefit of actually having this in your sketchbook, which I encourage you guys to do, to draw it out in your sketchbook so that you could flip back, right? If you draw it in another sketchbook, you have to bring out that sketchbook, open it up to that page, and use it as a reference. But if you have it in your sketchbooks that you're currently working on, you could just flip back on it and just be like, oh, okay, I remember it's this. This is the proportion. So as you could see here, it's 1 head, the hip area, the pelvic area, that's 1 head high and 1.5 heads wide. And in this example, I went a little bit too low. I made it too big, rather, in comparison to the size of the head. So another benefit to it, even though it's in different perspective, as you guys can see, I'm going to start drawing out the legs more. Even though it's a different perspective, the rules still apply. It's still some basis, some starting point for you to think things through. Like, okay, well, it's a different angle, but still approximately how big would this be in comparison to the head? Since the head is 1.5 heads, and we're seeing this in profile, it still has to be a head high. So the same height as the head. And you could do a quick check. I have like a little ruler here. This is an excellent tool. It's see-through, so you could really measure things out and see what's going on behind it. And if we were to like line it up, you could see that, yeah, it's about the same size as the head. And that works. The legs, they were 2 heads. So this would be 2 heads. And the bottom part of the leg is also 2 heads, up to the feet, pretty much. Where the feet are, the foot is a little bit bigger than the head. Give or take, sometimes that varies, but on average. Now, originally, this drawing is facing down, so it's completely the opposite, going the opposite direction. From here, it's going to be touching the other leg, but I fret not, I will work with it. I'm not going to make it smaller to make sure that, and that's a common mistake that people make when they draw next to something that they've drawn before, let's say, or if they're drawing something and it is next to some sort of object, they're like too afraid to touch it. They want to have that separation. I think it's just something to do with like focus. You know, you want to focus as much on the drawing and you don't want anything interfering with it. So you kind of want to isolate it as much as possible from everything else around. And while that's good to some extent, it's also good to practice the opposite of not being afraid of having things colliding with each other, being in a background, being in a foreground. It's a very useful tool when it comes to drawing, when it comes to you drawing in the future, like drawing out comics or drawing out panels or drawing out anything really. You're going to need to have objects collide with each other. It makes the image more interesting. You know, if everything is kind of separate and has its own space and everything is very well spaced out between each other, it has a bit of a boring sort of look. It has its place, but it shouldn't be an scapegoat. You know, you shouldn't want to go to it just because you want to avoid learning the ability to collide objects or have them be in the foreground and the background and know how to draw them properly. And as you can see, there's a benefit again to drawing things out in this simple form because it allows you to also play around with size as well. You know, you could make it smaller, you could make it bigger, a lot bigger, to work within the space that you have. So I'm going to do another one here. Do a quick gesture. So stick figures aren't useless. You know, people say, I could only draw stick figures. That's good. You can use that. And it becomes a very useful tool. And this is just to demonstrate how. And the more you do it, this is kind of why I'm repeating a lot of these figure examples, is because the more you do it, the faster you become. At sketching out the body using the basic shapes. It's not so much about drawing all the different type of positions over and over again. It's sometimes good to have like a handful of them and just practicing, because really you want to get the idea down of like using basic shapes. And then once you do that, it becomes, and you get a better understanding of the figure using that, you can make up your own, examples of it. And I'm going to demonstrate to you guys exactly that. So the same idea, I created a stick figure first to just give myself some parameters to work within. And then pretty much created the entire body using these basic shapes. I'm going to give him 3 heads. Just having fun with it. But yeah, that's that really does become the advantage of it. You could just play around with things. You could move the figure around however you'd like, because you just understand all these principles. You understand the head as the unit of measurement, so you can always check yourself. You can be like, okay, is this head bigger than like we were talking about earlier than the hip area? It shouldn't be. The hip should be as big as the head. Same thing for the chest. The chest shouldn't be extremely long. It should be at most 4 heads tops. So 3 heads from the chin down to the groin area. And just to go over that real quick, and you guys could get a better idea of what I'm talking about exactly. Oops. There you go. So as you can see here, it's 2 heads to the chest, including the head itself. But really it's just 1 head from the head down to the chest area, 2 heads from the chest down to the waist, and then from the waist down to the groin area. That's 3, so 4 heads in total. And you could see that same idea really applies to this, even though it doesn't look like it because of the cutoff, because of, like this area makes things a little bit confusing, this gap. But that gap is just to demonstrate how that area is pretty much just muscles, ligaments and muscles kind of connecting these two halves, basically. That space is what allows us to really bend down and touch our toes, for example, or lean side to side, because all that isn't anything solid. There's nothing solid there. And it allows us to be flexible, more flexible. So that's just there to remind you visually, like, yep, that's the space. But really, if you were to do a head count, if you were to say, like, okay, well, how big is this exactly in comparison? So this is one head, 2 heads to the chest. And again, you're doing proximate, right? Because it is in perspective. Things are going to get shrunk. Things are going to shrink a bit. So you want to just be able to just give yourself like an approximate. So from there to the chest area, I'm going to say it's about another head. And then from the chest area down to the waist, that's another head. And then from the waist down to the groin area, that's another head. So 4 heads in total. That's right. That's about right. Same idea here. If you measure it, and you could just use your pencil to do it if you don't have a ruler nearby, and you could just give yourself an idea, like, okay, 2 heads, and just basically try to eye it a little bit to get a better sense for it. But I highly encourage first to stick to as precise of a drawing as possible when you're drawing this. Really take time to measure things out when it comes to this, because you want to get your eye used to, that's what's going to help you eye things better. You want to get your eye used to seeing the body in proportion. You want to get your eye used to seeing everything kind of line up. And then once you practice that more and more, once you understand it more, once you measure things more, you will be able to just eye it better and judge for yourself without really going to measurements each and every single time. But in the beginning, it's good to do that. And, something that I mention frequently, same idea as when you were first learning to read, right? Just because you recited the alphabet once doesn't mean you could read all the complicated text and understand every single word. You have to do it over and over and over again until your mind just gets used to it, right? Your mind gets used to the words, how they sound, the letters, knowing them, how to pronunciate them. Your mind just gets used to that, and you're able to just do it with ease and quicker. But if you remember, if you recite, it took you some time. You had to really enunciate certain words. You had to really take time and read a sentence. Whereas now you read a paragraph in less than you did back then when it came to a sentence. So it's just the same idea here. You're getting your eye used to seeing the body in proportion, measuring things out, taking time to make sure you get it down as precise as possible. And then from there, build on top of it. And from there, you'll be able to just recognize the body in proportion better and better. So I'm going to draw like another one, and this is also another from Imagination. Stick figure. To give myself parameter. And get an idea. Of how big and how tall I want things to be. And then I'm going to start using the basic shapes. To put the body together. Now remember, the width of the arm is supposed to be half the head. So judging, this is again more of a profile drawing. I'm going to change the direction of the arm. He's reaching out to save his face from falling. While falling, not from falling. So yeah, now that we know that the width of the arm is half the head, you want to make sure that it's not too wide drawing it. Otherwise, it's going to make the head look weird. It's going to make the head look very small. Same thing with the hips again. The hips are supposed to be only a head high, not higher. Just kind of created a scene here of some dude tripping, literally, maybe even figuratively, and this three-headed guy is like catching him right before he falls. I don't know, it's kind of, like I said, just have fun with it. Create little scenes. And then the foot, we were talking about, the foot isn't supposed to be bigger than the head. It's about the same size as the head, slightly bigger, very slightly bigger. I'll demonstrate that to you here. As you could see, like the toes are basically just poking out from this line to demonstrate, you know, how high the head is really. And so you can use that. Again, it's approximate, right? Because this is in perspective. It's a different angle, but based on that idea, you can make sure that the foot isn't incredibly big or extremely small. So another benefit of that, right? Approximation. So I encourage you guys, if you are starting out a new sketchbook, or if you already have a sketchbook, to dedicate a page or two to this guide. And as I mentioned, you guys can always get this on Patreon. It starts with tier 2. You get access to these pages. You can sketch them out in your sketchbook, and you can use them as reference. You could print out that page. You could have it side by side so that you could actually draw these out on your sketchbook, in your sketchbook. And then just use it as reference. But yeah, that benefit, as you could see, it transitions into other things as well. So that pretty much does it for Drawing Basics again today, guys. I'm going to be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. with Drawing Basics. So you could tune in there. And then I'm going to continue filling up spaces in the sketchbook until I feel pretty satisfied with it, because the book is pretty much done. The sketchbook is done. I'm just going to be coming back to it for like drawing comics and for coloring comics. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys enjoy the content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. They both help the stream grow and reach out to more people, branch out to more artists and those interested to become part of the Art Lounge Alley. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, guys, and I'll be back for the project stream that I'm excited to jump back into. It's going to be digital, and I'm going to continue from where I left off last week. So stay tuned, y'all, and I'll see you in 5.